Hey, everybody. Welcome to TriSummit, inspiring, entertaining, and educational sessions created for you so you can hit your personal best in 2021. This session of TriSummit is called Avoiding Injury Upon Your Return to Racing. It's presented by CEP and our three amazing panelists, only three of my favorite people on the planet. We'll start with our three-time Xterra world champion, Lesley Paterson. Then we move on to the 2004 Olympian, 2007 Ironman 70.3 world champion, 28 70.3 wins, Mr. Andy Potts. And of course, the grip of death himself, six-time Ironman world champion, 10-time Nice champion, inductee into the Ironman Triathlon Hall of Fame, Mr. Mark Allen. You guys, this is such a treat to get you three together. I don't think we've ever had the three of you guys together before.
No.
And the cool thing is all you guys are coaches. So first of all, how have you dealt with this whole COVID thing? Because all you guys are so active and all of a sudden not being able to be with other people and do the things you love to do. Start with you, Andy, just dealing with this COVID. How has that been for you?
Yeah, good to see everybody. Glad to be here. So last year when things went things started to shut down, I was kind of caught in no man's land. And then I ended up taking a break in June, just knowing that I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There was an opportunity in December for me to race again. So that kind of lit the fire under me a little bit and got me to get into good shape. And ever since maybe October, I've been really dedicated to my craft and diving back in. And I'm also trying to show what it's that daily pursuit. It's not necessarily the grabbing the carrot at the end of the race, So it is the daily pursuit and learning to love the and having a passion for that said pursuit. Yeah.
So Les, for you, what have you been up to? And you're also balance the fact that you deal with Lyme disease, you're coaching, you still race, you're producing a movie. How have you balanced all that?
Do you know, it's actually been quite an enlightening time for me, Bob. I think it really has allowed me to assess where I'm going, what I'm doing, what I love. And not only that, I have a great hubby and I get to kick his ass every day. So at least I have a training buddy. Which is great. But so I've done a lot of things. I've really gone on adventures in my training. So I've really discovered, San Diego, that's where I currently live, getting outside a lot. And that's really helped my mental state of mind, getting out in the mountains, seeing different trails, roads, absolutely loving that. And then being a lot more creative. As you mentioned, I'm kind of moving into film. We have a big film that's going into production with Netflix actually in March. So we've been doing a lot of screenwriting and creative stuff. So enjoying other aspects of my life as well to try and keep me fulfilled and excited and in a good mental spot to help all those athletes I coach too.
So Mark, for you, just dealing with the COVID as just how it limits yourself, but also as a coach, knowing that your athletes are trying to figure out why do I keep training if I don't have that test, if I don't have that race?
Yeah, my athletes and my personal journey through this period it's been like everybody else. In the beginning, we all thought, oh, this is going to be like a month or 6 week deal. And all of a sudden it just starts to drag on. And now as we see, it's been over a year. And so initially, a lot of people were just kind of in shock and sort of just, as Andy was mentioning, kind of like trying to refine purpose. Why am I going to keep going out there and train? And so I kind of just pulled myself back a little bit and said, what is this for me as a coach, and what is this for the athletes who will not have races probably at all this year? And we just kind of reframed just the whole journey that people are on. And I said, okay, first of all, it's easy to focus on what we can't do. We can't go to the gym. We can't go to the pool. We can't get together with our training partners. We're not going to be able to race. And if that's all we look at, the world is going to look negative. So let's just shift that paradigm and start to look each and every day at what I can do. I can use stretch cords. I can do body weight work in my home. I can do trainer workouts. I can, as you were saying, get outside more, and really use that natural environment. And then once people kind of got into that, they started to get that sense that, racing is great, but at the same time, the thing that really gives this whole multi-sport endurance sport journey worthiness is that each and every day when I go out there and train and I do something, it's something positive that I'm doing for myself, and I feel good from it. And it is so important, especially right now, as a vehicle for stress relief, because when you're training, you can just push it all out aside for a moment, whatever job worries or anything you have, it's on the outside. And so it really became this great stress relief for people. And then, the third piece that we put in play for my athletes is like, let's just adapt. If you have a day where you're tired, don't push through it. There's going to be time in the future where it's important to do those key workouts. And if you're out there on a day that's supposed to be, let's say, moderate, and you feel like a champ, just frigging go for it. Take that real structure away and just kind of go with how your body's feeling day to day. And through that, people have kind of redefined their whole relationship with athletics.
That's so cool. So Andy, for you, when you look at the athletes you work with who maybe they are thinking, okay, I'm training for Boston Marathon. Well, that's now in October. I was training for Oceanside 70.3. That's now in October. So they're signed up for a lot of events, and they're all going to be in September or October or maybe November. What do you tell them so they don't overdo it? Because there really is a chance people can get injured by trying to jam too much in and doing racing, a ton of racing, when they haven't raced at all.
When we look at just the whole picture of someone's life, we try to say that triathlon should fit into your life and not the other way around. And when I'm looking at someone's year, how they lay out their year, we're not contending too much with family vacations, but I still want them to take family time. And what it's actually allowed me to do with the focus of all of our athletes is to say, this is one step in front of the other. And so you can start to make incremental change. And before you know it, you've made a massive gain because you've been able to add some consistency, and you haven't turned the dial too swiftly or too quickly to ramp up and shove in some work into a set amount of time frame. Because that time frame has been expanded and it's actually becoming unknown, I'm trying to get more and more of the athletes to be about 6 weeks out. So I want to get them into good enough shape so they have 6 weeks to prepare for a specific race. And usually that can get it done for their goals and their dreams and what they're trying to achieve. So we're looking at it as slowly turning the dial instead of trying to work it all in. And I think it's been a super positive experience for everybody because they're starting to manage their work week, their training, their social side of things a lot better because they don't have this, anvil hanging over them over like a 9-hour ride on Sunday or something like that.
So Les, for you with your athletes who are, we're training for spring events, we're training for summer events, now have a bunch of Xterras on their schedule for the fall. Yeah. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I certainly, I'm coaching Ironman, half, Xterra, the whole kit and caboodle. And I think with all of those athletes, we've used this time, and certainly, specifically in the spring, to really do a lot of assessment of the body in terms of biomechanical assessments, understanding where those little aches or pains or tweaks are coming from, and setting in really good habits to address those, whether that's little exercises, glute engagement, all of those kinds of things, stretching, mobility, rolling, even so that folks are doing it 10 to 15 minutes a day, but setting that in motion so that when they do come to race, their bodies are going to be in the right position to be able to handle any kind of load that they're going to need to take in order to maybe race back to back. So I think it's just paying attention to all those little things.
Yeah. For you, Mark, how are you having your athletes adapt to that jam-packed fall season?
Well, I'm telling them just because there's 1,000 races doesn't mean they get to do 1,000 races. You still have to be smart, and so we're trying to hopefully, have a real big event in October, November that people are targeting, but then hopefully have some either local races or something that will help them to kind of get back into that rhythm of racing leading into it, so that it's not this total shock when they go into that big one. But that, the main thing is just being sensible about what you're choosing and realizing you can't make up for a year and a half all in 2 months. And and during this time, I've been doing exactly like Lesley was mentioning, is really getting the athletes to take this time where there's not that pressure of getting on their swimming, cycling, and running and having these killer workouts, but more to focus on how they move and the mechanics and improving swim stroke, dialing in their bike position just that little bit extra, working on cadence and form and midfoot strike and everything with running that makes you more efficient, so that as they build that fitness slowly, as Andy was saying, all of a sudden they have this efficiency and a lot of them, you can see the light bulb going on. They're like, now I get it. I can see where this is going to end up. If I can keep myself healthy by not overtraining, and then get to one of those fall races or 2 of those fall races, it's going to be like a whole new level of what I was able to do. And so people are actually really excited because of this time that they've had to work on stuff that they never did before.
What's fascinating about that, Mario, you think about it, the hard part about staying healthy is you gear up for an event, then you race it, you taper, then you travel, then you're on different time zones, you're eating at different times, you go do your race, you come back, you recover. When you eliminate all of that block and you're just able to train consistently, I bet people are in a lot better shape and maybe less injured.
They are, most are. A few people have, they've sort of taken their frustration out on overdoing it in their workouts, but most of the people that I work with have been very sensible, and they've just taken a much longer term approach. The reality is a lot of the folks that I coach race locally, except for maybe an Ironman event that they will fly to or go to. So,
yeah.
The travel hasn't been as much of an issue as, say, for a professional athlete or
right.
Somebody who's chasing some all-world athlete points in Ironman. But for sure, just having that real consistency, it's taught people how to allocate their energy a little bit better. Because when when you have a race coming up, like you said, you have this taper, and so you push really hard, and you hope that in those 2 or 3 weeks where you start to really back off, that you're going to recover, and then you do the race. And if it's a great race, you want to train hard. If you had a crappy race, you want to train hard, when you get back. And so this has really helped people to just go, okay, and get into a real consistent, steady rhythm. And a human being, as we all know, those deep core fitness changes happen very slowly over time. So from one day to the next, you don't see those deposits in the fitness bank account until you reach critical momentum, and then you make a big jump. But so this has really allowed people to just put it in a little bit each day, and to understand what consistency means. Because if you get injured, you're not training. If you're not training, you're not getting faster. And so this has helped people to just kind of pull it all back in and approach their training, and then eventually the racing, with a very different focus and mindset.
So Andy, moving from being an athlete to a coach, and you're still racing, what did you gain from your career that has helped you as a coach?
A lot. I think experience speaks volumes.
Yeah.
When it comes to knowing the ins and outs of changing time zones, changing continents, preparing for a distance that maybe 15 minutes, an hour, that's a different demand than something that takes 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 17 hours. So like trying to expose myself to different cultures and ways to learn different things, I think this really helped me communicate to all of the athletes that I coach on how to be, patient, and I try to teach them like that they are learning when they go out and they do have experience and they need to rely on it and lean on it. And I talk to them about these things on a weekly basis, like, hey, use last Friday's run as a way to get through today's run. And they're like, oh, well, I was really strong on Friday. Yeah, you can be really strong each and every day if you have the focus and you can rely and lean on something that you know and something that is familiar. So I'm trying to pass on those kind of lessons to them and saying, each athlete is an experiment of one. I can pass on everything that I've learned, but at the same time, like, there's so much value in their own personal experience. So they need to feel and then what it means to have, run a 10-minute mile. And then what does that feel like? What are the, and then everybody's obsessed with their devices and their output. And I'm trying to get them to mirror or match their feelings with their output or their metrics. Right. And then we try to take that knowledge and move forward with it. So I'm just trying to share my experiences to hopefully, maybe steepen, make that curve a little bit less steep for them.
So since this session is brought to you by CEP, and I think you were one of the first guys I saw wearing compression in races, what has that brought to the table for you?
Well, I guess number one, it keeps everything tight and in place, right? And that's probably my biggest reason. I started wearing them maybe 2007 and doing Ironman racing because I would push on the bike and it would be just glute and quad dominant. And then my calves were working, but when I would go to the run, my calves they would feel like they're going to explode. So I felt like when I wore a nice pair of CPs, that it kept everything in check. And then beyond the race course, it meant, better recovery because I was flying with them. I was wearing them when I wasn't training to get that venous blood flow back to the heart. So it really helped with that, fought gravity for me for a bit.
So Les, as somebody you're coaching people who are doing road triathlons and doing off-road triathlons, what have you gained? Because you've done all that. We've seen you racing in Oceanside and we've seen you winning Xterra Worlds. What have you gained from your career to help people both off-road and on-road?
I think probably one of my biggest philosophies revolves around strength. I really believe that strength is the cornerstone to speed, regardless of the distance or the discipline. In Xterra, there's a lot of torque on the bike. All different trails, a lot of hills. Obviously, strength is a component. But I think that if you have muscle durability, it's going to sustain you throughout an entire Ironman, half Ironman, Xterra race. So strength is really been the key thing. The other key thing, I think, is learning to find positivity in the failures, right? They're not really failures. They're a way to grow and learn about yourself. So if you can really approach every race like that, you're always going to come out with something positive. And I think that positivity is a real key thing because athletes get really down on themselves. They put, such expectations on what they want to achieve. And then there's so much comparison that goes on, especially with social media. They're always comparing. They're not worried about their own journey. And so if we can find something positive for them to focus on, regardless of the outcome, so a process-focused, system, and then also, just finding their own path, right? This is my journey. It's not anyone else's. So stop comparing so much. I think those have been some of the key elements to keeping me at the top as long as I have.
And Grip, from your career, since you started in the early 80s and your last Ironman was 95, over time, obviously, training techniques have changed a lot. People are using all sorts of different electronics that weren't even available when you were racing. How have you used all of that, and how have you taken the success you had in your career and also some of the things you had to overcome in your career to help your athletes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And people ask me that a lot. Like, dude, you don't know what's going on now because you didn't have a power meter when you were training. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, let's back up a second, okay?
You had a Polar. It was about this big.
Yeah. Human physiology has not changed one bit since I raced, and so the basics are absolutely the same. But what the devices are enabling us to do is to refine the basic concepts of how to train to get your body ready for speed, endurance, durability. Like Lesley was saying, strength is so important for durability. And so what when I race, one of the cornerstones was patience, and just having patience to put in that steady training that eventually would lead to big results. And I as a top athlete, I had these very high-end goals of what I was searching for. So on any given training day, I didn't care if somebody was faster than me or if I was faster than them, because there were these 6 or 7 times throughout the year that had real importance for me. As a coach, I have to sort of step back from that mindset a lot, because, age group athletes, a lot of them get just as much joy and excitement and happiness about winning their Saturday ride or their Sunday run as they do about going fast in a race. And in fact, races are just more of like a social event for a lot of them. And so, yeah. And so I think you're the king of that. And so it's like people sometimes are very focused on having their absolute best performance at races. Others, they just want to have kind of, some good guidance so that they don't kill themselves or get injured. But at the same time, they don't care to be super disciplined. They want to just sometimes go out and just blow it out and have a good time with their buddies, their training partners. And so that sort of has helped me evolve as a coach to kind of really look at each athlete individually and understand what has meaning to them about what they're doing. And so those that really want to race well, I'll be on them like glue to get them to stick with, what I think is a real good progression. Others, if they go out and they go, well, I was with that guy that I hadn't trained with in 4 years and I just wanted to show him something. It's like, right on. I hope you had a good time,
That is awesome. Andy, when you look back when I look at you, I see a guy who was Olympic caliber swimmer. Actually, in 2004 in Athens at the Olympics, you won the 1,500 meter swim, right? And then you got in your bike and you ran.
Right.
You won the 1,500. That's what your goal was when you were in college, to win the 1,500 Olympics. You did it. But you're talking about Olympic distance athlete, winning Alcatraz, I think like 6 times, winning all these over 28 70.3s, and then being so consistent in Ironman, finishing top 10 and top 5 there a number of times. Balancing all of that, balancing and figuring out how to adapt over time. How hard was that for you?
I think it wasn't that hard. Looking back on it, I mean, like the racing, like there were certain challenges on race day, and the racing is hard, but I followed my heart when it came to, kind of what made me happy. And in that regard, it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard to shift gears from, certain distances and certain races to other races. And I think that was probably the biggest reason why I left draft legal racing and moved into non-drafting and eventually Ironman, was because I really, I found it that I connected with so many other athletes in a much better way. There was, it actually made my heart lighter on race day, and the training was just as demanding, and the racing was just as fierce. But ultimately, like, if you follow your heart in terms of what makes you happy, like, let's pursue those things. And in that regard, it was easy, because I actually really like doing what I do. I don't have plans to stop racing professionally for a long time. I've got a 13-year-old son who wants me to race with him as a professional. I'm like, hey, buddy, we'll see about that. I'll be in my 50s real quick, and we'll have to be racing. But I mean, if I'm having fun and still getting results in terms of like what I can personally attain, then yeah, I'll continue to pursue it, because there is an art form to it. It's not all science, and there's a passion for endurance sports that I have, and I don't. If that ever goes away, then I'll go away.
What I love is how you've adapted, because it used to be, okay, just chalk it up. Andy Possum, the first guy out of the water in Kona. We know it. Then the point where I think you probably were like, why am I schlepping and going off the front and pulling these guys when I can do backstroke a little bit and sort of relax and come out of the water? I saw you doing backstroke out there and sort of hanging out, because it's not going to make any difference. They're going to gain a couple seconds on me. And then when people look around, everybody's racing at the front, and there's Andy Potts, top 10 again, doing his gig. Was that hard for you to basically say, okay, my ego's in the swim, but not really. My ego's in where I am at the finish?
It took me a few years to figure out that I would give away all of my first out of the waters if you could guarantee me a first at the end, because we had to look at what was I doing. Am I getting better as a triathlete? Am I becoming a more complete triathlete and trying to win the whole race, not just a portion of it? And it gave me perspective. And then, but at the same time, like, you have to race towards your strengths. So I was using a strength as a weapon. And I think, moving forward, I think the swim is going to be more valuable because as a really good swimmer, you can have partners in crime to make it so it's less of a solo venture. For my first couple of races in Hawaii, I was by myself for an hour and a half, 2 hours on the bike, and but when the freight train came, it was like, all right, we're pushing you through the back. So and I've also kind of prioritized the training to make it so I can ride better, because if you can't ride right now, you're not going to get it done. And then now it's a complete game. It really is. And it's been that way for a little while.
Yeah. Hey, and Les, when I look back at your career, I mean, probably the race that really sticks out to me the most, you win Xterra Worlds in 2011. And I think you had a flat and you fell down, but you caught Melanie McQuaid 400 yards from the finish, and she had passed out. And so a lot of people were like, yeah, Lesley won, but she knocked off Melanie because Melanie collapsed. When you came back in 2012 and won it again, then everybody's like, oh, okay, we get it now. How important was that for you?
Oh, I think that was everything, eh? I think when you repeat something, it really cements it, because I was definitely a doubting Thomas after 2011. The initial euphoria of, oh my God, I always dreamed of being a world champion, now I am, was quickly replaced with, oh my God, I'm not really that good, right? I'm a fraud. So we luckily, Simon, my husband, is a sports psychologist, right? So we really worked that summer on kind of what Andy was talking about, my why. Why do I do this? Why is it important? And we drilled down on a happiness piece and a passion piece. And that for me was being out in the mountains with my friends, having a great time and pushing each other, until you're throwing up. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? So, I kind of got that right that summer and was in the perfect place to deliver on race day. And ironically, the night before 2012 Worlds, there was actually a tsunami warning. And so we were all thrown out of our hotels. And I spent the night on the side of a hill thinking, are you kidding me? I'm the fittest I've ever been. It's never going to happen. And of course, you get in the line and you sort of, I have an alter ego that I race under that I'd created with Simon. And we just, we got it right in the day. And I'd say in all of my years of racing, that was my most perfect race I've ever had in every aspect of the word, sort of the swimming, the biking, and the running, but the mental side of it, I really enjoyed every moment. I was in complete flow. And I don't think athletes either ever get that, or they get that very infrequently. So it was a magical moment, and my dad was there to celebrate with me. So that was cool.
And who would have thought that you'd win it again 6 years later?
Oof, I know, after dealing with Lyme's disease and all the health issues and Yeah, I think it's testament to just doing what you love, as Andy said, right? I'm so passionate about it. I love my sport. I love the process. I love getting out every day and just being out there and struggling and the ups and downs of it all and the failures and the successes. And that's what makes it what it is for me. It's my therapy. So I think that's why I've been successful.
And Grip, from my perspective, is watching you watch the 94 race and you're doing NBC, and a lot of people probably thought, okay, Mark Allen's won 5 times here. Is he going to come back or not come back? And your son was born. You come back in 95 and 37 years old, and I'm sure there were some points during that year where you're wondering, what the hell am I doing? My body's not quite liking this. When did you feel that you were ready to take that race on again, knowing that it was a struggle to come back?
Race morning.
Yeah.
I mean, I struggled that whole year. I took off Ironman racing in 94 because Matt's had been born the previous November. And I thought, you know what, I need some time to figure out what that means to be a father. And if I'm focused on Ironman, I'm going to miss out on a lot of his first year and a half of life. And I don't want to do that. And also I was burned out. I'd won 5 Ironmans in 5 years from 89 through 93. And that was a huge effort. It was a big ask of my body. And I knew that no matter how much desire I had to go back in 94, that my body was not going to cooperate. So I tried to kind of, listen to that inner voice and just put it on hold for a year and then come back in 95. And I thought that I had sort of put the battery charger in and plugged it in and was ready to go. But throughout the year, I was struggling. There were only a handful of days the entire summer where I actually felt good. And on top of that, all of my training partners that I had done key workouts with had retired. Ken Souza, Paul Huddle. And so I had to do these big ass workouts on my own, these huge rides and huge runs. And it was just completely mentally taxing. I mean, like Andy and Lesley said, you go out there and you train, and when there's that excitement and passion, it fuels you. And like Lesley was saying, you do it with your training partners, it's like you love it. And when I was solo, you have to understand, I have a lazy streak. And so if it's just me meeting myself for a 7-hour ride, I can come up with 10,000 excuses why it's not a good idea. So anyway, I struggled. And even Kona week, I felt like, pull it in, rein it in. All I'm asking is this from the Big Island is one more great race. And so I was just trying to put as much energy in as I could. And I had a lot of extra help from many sources that year to get ready. Race morning, I woke up and I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. But as you know, when I came off the bike, I was 13 and a half minutes behind the leader, Thomas Hellriegel. And so then I'm thinking, there is no friggin' way I can do this, And it took until mile 23 to slowly chip away at that deficit and to make that final pass in my Ironman career and go on to win number 6. And in retrospect, before the race, I was thinking, okay, I know this is going to be my final Ironman. The ideal would be to win it and set a world's record. And, you come up with all the great scenarios, right? Why not? Why not dream big? And early on the bike, we were going down toward Waikoloa on that long downgrade into the wind. And I was in a 39:17 going downhill. And I'm thinking, okay, there's no world's record happening today. But I thought maybe the wind. But anyway, I had asked the Big Island for one last great race. And I had my usual talk with the island before the event. And in my ideal mind, I was thinking a great race meant that it would be an easy win and it would be like a parade lap. Well, it was the most challenging race of my entire career to stick with it, to overcome those thousands of moments where I just wanted to throw in the towel and give up, and it's not worth it. And I've won 5, and Hellriegel, he's 13 years, younger than me, and I can't catch him, all the negative chatter that just can completely erode your confidence and your ability to keep going. I was not in the flow like Lesley was talking about in those moments. And I had to just keep talking myself down off the ledge and get my mind to be quiet. And when I got in that space, I could feel the flow come back, and I could feel that possibility come back and hope. And I just knew that something might happen here that would turn it in my direction. And, you know, like I said, it took 23 miles of running on the marathon before I could finally catch Hell Regal. And even then I didn't know if the pass was going to stick, but I pulled up behind him or ran up behind him. And then I thought, do I rest? Is he waiting for me? Do I blow by him? What do I do? You know, there's a lot of different ways that I could have approached that. And finally, I realized life was just asking me to commit to one of these things and just do it. And so I thought, I'm just going to go by him and keep pushing as long as I can all the way to the finish. And the pass did stick. I went on and won that 6th title. But, you know, it's like, kind of like Lesley was saying, you know, you have these difficult moments and difficult races, but those are the ones that are often the most enriching and most empowering. And, you know, that race really was everything that I had learned in during my 15-year career up to that point, to pull it off, to put it together, and to go out, you know, with such a grand event like that.
Love it. That was the drop the mic moment. Andy, I know all three of you, as amazing athletes, obviously are great coaches as well. And the victories you've had as athletes are great, but I know some of the victories you have as a coach also mean a ton to you. Tell me one, Andy, of an athlete, maybe as an athlete who you're like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get this person through any race? And next thing you know, they're coming across a finish line you never thought they might reach.
I think that, you know, you run the gamut with, you know, really talented athletes, and then athletes that just have this idea that maybe they could become an Ironman. I think I have more of the latter than the former with the athletes that we work with. And, you know, I'd say that some of the best moments for me are like, I don't know, like 17 hours. If they need like 3 more, I think 20 hours they could get to the line. You see them walking in the dark at the start of the marathon. And you're just like, okay, you know, if you could just clip off like 22-minute miles here, you can get there. You know, watching athletes in the last hour, you know, whether it's, you know, I've seen a few cross races where I've been. I'll go back just to watch them in Lake Placid and Coeur d'Alene. And it is really special. You know, I'll get out because the crowds congregate near the finish line, not necessarily out on the course. No. And there are a lot of lonely moments out on those race courses. And I feel like there's a lot of soul searching in those quiet, lonely moments for all the athletes that I work with. And you can see them start to, you know, work through some demons, and then they, you know, it's a roller coaster though, because it's not just the steady climb or the steady decline. It's ups and downs. And I try to find them in the quiet moments and just, you know, try to be the voice in their head. And those are really special moments, you know, when you see them on the dark road and you talk to them and they start nodding. They don't even reply. They'll just nod or they're just tunnel vision. But at the end, they're like, oh man, thank you for finding me out there. And I was like, well, there weren't too many other athletes out there at that point. So you weren't that hard to find. But yeah, those are the most special. You know, and then I have actually run in with, like, helped an athlete get to the finish line, you know, because they were collapsing. But yeah, really special.
Love that. Les, for you, a couple.
Yeah, I guess 2 different styles of moments. The first one is with my young, I call him my younger brother, is Mauricio Mendez. He's a wonderful athlete. He won Xterra World Champs at the tender age of, I don't know, 20 or something. But I coached him since he was 17 years old. He came across and he came to train with me because I guess he was a big fan. And I spoke to his family and I said, have him come to San Diego. He can come stay with my husband and I. We'll train him. So he now calls me General Lesley because I put him through a boot camp where, of course, you can imagine a young Mexican kid, right, sleeps until 10 a.m. I got him up at 3:30 a.m. It was awesome. Just to piss him off. Anyway, so I've really seen him grow, but not just as an athlete, right, but as a person, really mature into what sport means to him, what his journey is. And so to be a part of someone's life and watch that and feel a part of their family is amazing. And then the other side is just when you see the impact of the sport on people's lives, when they have mentally changed in their ordinary lives because of what they've achieved in triathlon. Maybe they thought that they could never in their wildest dreams complete an Ironman, even a sprint distance triathlon, and they do it. And the confidence that gives them, they go off and they get a new job, or they find a new relationship, or any one of those things. And I've had countless athletes like that, and it just warms my cockles. I love to see the sport having that impact.
I love that your cockles are warmed. That's great. So Grip, I'm sure you've got an athlete or two that you had their cockles warmed as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure where a cockle is, but yeah,
Cleveland. It's just south of Cleveland.
Yeah. I clearly my athlete that I always reflect on that was like my success story is this guy Leo DiCanio. He's a Clydesdale, and he lived in Florida when I first started coaching him. First race he ever did without me was a sprint triathlon. He finished last. He was pissed off. He goes, next year I'm going to come back and I'm going to do better. He came back the next year. He finished last. And so now he's thinking, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I better get some guy. So he Googles and decides he's going to get Mark Allen to coach him, and so he's like this bull in a china closet. He's huge, but he's got a good heart. But anyway, so I said, yeah, I'd love to help you out, Leo. And so I started coaching him, and I was trying to help him build his aerobic base because he had no aerobic fitness. Everything he did was hard. And he's like, this is nuts. This is crazy. I can't go this slow. I'll never be able to beat anybody. And each time he would question and ask why he's doing it like this, I would just take my time and explain the reasons behind what I was having him do. And slowly he started to actually get the fitness that he was looking for. And then he did another sprint race and he didn't finish in last. And he did an Olympic distance. Then he did a couple halves. And then he did a couple Ironmans. And then a couple years ago, he was invited to participate in Kona, and he finished with about 25 minutes before midnight. And when he came across, this just the absolute joy, not just on his face, but his whole body was just like this big Clydesdale hunk of joy, and it's like, if Leo can go from finishing last in a sprint race as a Clydesdale and then eventually cross the Ironman finish line in Kona under 17 hours, anybody can do this sport, and everybody can gain something amazing from that experience and that journey.
You guys, I could go for hours with the three of you. This is so much fun. Thank you so much for taking time and chatting. This is the TriSummit. You guys are the best. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bob. See you, boys.
All right, a huge thank you to the Grip and Andy and Lesley. Next session of TriSummit is tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time on nutrition periodization, featuring Tim O'Donnell and Bob Babbitt. Guest hosted by Ultraman world record holder Didi Griesbauer, and presented by UCAN. We will see you then. Thanks, you guys. You are the best.
Keep your cockles warm.
There you go.
Keep your cockles warm, exactly.
Take care.